A home in Texas goes up in flames, 3 baby girls killed. Their father charged with arson and murder.
I think he's pure evil.
American justice executes him for the crime. But new science raises doubt.
They executed an innocent man.
What do we want?
How those in power refuse to consider whether they made a terrible mistake. Corsicana, Texas, is just about an hour south of Dallas. It's one of those oil boom towns that sometimes goes bust. The people here cling to traditional American values: faith, family, the flag. And they were severely tested only 2 days before Christmas in 1991.
Everybody was joyful, like getting ready for the Christmas celebration. So it was a fun time during this time in the city.
What abruptly changed the festive mood was what happened to a young family from Oklahoma who had just moved into this simple wooden house. Times were tough for the Willingham family. The dad Todd, his wife Stacy, and their 3 young daughters, 2-year-old Amber and barely 1-year-old twins, Carmen and Cameron.
Todd was having trouble struggling with trying to feed 3 children. But he thought they were beautiful. He just almost worshiped them.
On that fateful day, Stacy left the house around 9 a.m. to find Christmas presents at the Salvation Army. She would never hold her daughters again. A violent blaze erupted, quickly enveloping the house. Todd said he tried to get to his girls, but the smoke was thick. He fled through the hall and out the front door. Retired firefighter Terry Smith heard the news over the police scanner that day. He was the first witness on the scene.
The fire was really hot coming out the front door. And I got down low and tried to go in the house. I couldn't go in because there was too much fire.
Assistant Fire Chief Doug Fogg led the charge to try to find the babies.
That's number one consideration is rescue. Getting the fire out and the kids inside. Can we get to them? Can we get them out?
Policeman Jimmy Hensley made it into the charred remains of the house. 19 years later, he still can't shake the horror of what he saw. In their bedroom, the tiny twins, Cameron and Carmen.
The 2 bodies were still laying in the floor in a pile of ashes, really. And it was a very gruesome scene, a very chilling scene, really.
When they found 2-year-old Amber, she was still breathing, barely. She later died in hospital. The Willingham children were gone. A television news crew captured Willingham's emotions right after the fire.
My little girl was crying, "Daddy, Daddy." When I woke up, the whole house was in smoke.
Corsicana rallied with an outpouring of sympathy for the grieving parents, raising funds for the children's burial.
This was a beautiful funeral. The whole town was there. And people that didn't even know Todd and Stacy were lining the streets. It was amazing, the support.
But the support slowly evolved into suspicion once fire investigators started taking a closer look.
Fire talks to you, okay? Tells you what it did, if you can read it, or if you listen to it. It told me that someone set the fire.
Doug Fogg was typical of the firemen turned arson investigators who picked up their skills fighting fires, trusting their experience and their instincts. Fogg, and a state fire marshal, made a video of their investigation.
Burn patterns unusual to a normal fire burn.
They could find no accidental causes for the blaze, but they did spot what they considered many telltale signs of arson.
Every charring underneath indicating that fire was underneath the bed.
They found the heat from the fire was so extreme, it melted the metal bed springs. They saw patterns that looked like puddles from an accelerant.
The burn patterns that we found, just didn't go with an accidental fire.
Word spread that the fire had been deliberately set. Suspicion quickly fell on the only adult in the house at the time. Todd Willingham had few burns on his body, and he told conflicting stories of what had happened inside the burning house. One neighbor reported he seemed more concerned with pushing his car away from the flames than rescuing his children.
I would have been in the fire myself, trying to get the babies out. I wouldn't have been standing out in the yard waiting for somebody to come help.
And then witnesses seemed to alter their accounts. In his original statement to police, Terry Smith was adamant that Willingham had tried to go back in the house, only Smith stopped him because it was not safe. But as the town turned against Willingham, Smith offered this version.
He wasn't really trying to go into the house. I mean, I didn't have to stop him very hard, from what I remember.
The local newspaper at first reported that Willingham was so distraught he was fighting wildly and had to be restrained with handcuffs. But now that too was viewed as a well-staged performance.
It also could be somebody that's putting on an act, trying to convince people that he was a grieving father and was real concerned. That's what he expected people to think.
2 weeks after the fire, police arrested Todd Willingham for the arson murder of his 3 daughters, a crime punishable by death in Texas.
That's when the town was really changed over to, well, not a vigilante town, but it was, he'll get what he deserves type deal, and he's not going to go free.
The more people in the town learned about the accused man, the less they liked him. He didn't have a steady job, he drank a lot, and had beat his wife. Jimmy Hensley found out a lot more when he dug deeper into Willingham's past.
We found out that he'd been arrested for stealing a motorcycle. He'd been arrested for resisting arrest. He'd been arrested for assault, carrying a prohibited weapon. So even at an early age, he was a criminal.
Willingham grew up on the rough side of the tracks. Here in Ardmore, Oklahoma. His mother abandoned him when he was just a baby. His stepmother, Eugenia, raised and loved him like her own.
I think he was angry in the sense that he felt like there was something missing. And no matter how much love you gave him, he always seemed to want more.
By his early teens, he was sniffing paint, breaking the law, anything, his friends say, to test the edge. Sherry Cooley remembers Todd once shoplifting a camera, even though he had enough money to buy it.
When he calls from jail, we're all going, well, why'd you do that? Are you an idiot? And he just wanted to see if he could get away with it. There was never meanness behind it.
Willingham seemed to grab on to the birth of his 3 children as a chance to turn his life around. Here's a letter he sent to his family. The words are read by an actor.
They changed my life and gave me more love and happiness than I have ever known.
Friends insist he was devastated by their deaths.
And I remember just wrapping my arms around him, and he just cried all night. Screaming hysterical. My babies were in it. My house burned and my babies were in it.
But that was not the man policeman Jimmy Hensley says he questioned after the fire.
All the time I was interviewing him, he would just sit there cold. Cold and empty. No emotion inside. He's just like a machine sitting there answering the questions. He had no conscience, in my opinion. I think he's pure evil.
All of the evidence, to me, indicated guilt.
David Martin agreed with the police. But here's the thing. He was the lawyer appointed by the court to defend Willingham.
I'm expressing my opinion, my personal opinion, based on the evidence. If you kill your children, you're a sociopath.
So when Willingham was offered a life sentence if he pleaded guilty, Willingham's stepmother says his lawyer, Martin, pressured them to accept.
David Martin threw these pictures of the burned children down on the table, and he said, I just want you to see what your son did. This is what your son did. Said he needs to plead guilty so he can get a life sentence.
Eugenia visited her stepson in jail to beg him to take the plea.
Please, Todd, please, at least you'll be alive, you know. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, they might as well get that needle dirty right now because I cannot admit to doing something I did not do, especially killing my own children.
Willingham insisted on trusting the justice system, but as you'll see, that turned out to be a fatal gamble. In the searing summer of 1992, emotions were running high in Corsicana, Texas. Todd Willingham was on trial for killing his 3 daughters in a deliberately set fire. And the town had pretty much made up its mind.
You're going to have almost a lynching atmosphere, just an old-fashioned 1860 hanging and lynching.
Willingham entered a plea of not guilty, but his own lawyers didn't dispute that someone must have set the fire.
We had enough money to hire one expert, and his conclusion was that it was arson. Well, that was my conclusion, too.
The prosecutor, John Jackson, told jurors only a monster would burn his own children.
I think when you have somebody killed in an arson trial, I think an appropriate response is to demonize the perpetrator.
The prosecution put a jailhouse informant named Johnny Webb on the witness stand. He said Willingham bragged in prison that he set the fire. Then neighbors testified Willingham was a drunk who hated his kids.
Todd liked the good life. He liked going out to the bars. He liked drinking. He wanted to get rid of the kids just so to get them out of his way because they were a nuisance.
His old friend Sherry Cooley tried to convince jurors otherwise. She trusted Willingham enough to care for her own children.
My children were babysat by him constantly, and he was not a monster. Monsters don't play in the backyard, and monsters don't put twins on each side of the bed and rock them with their feet all night long in their little car seats to keep them from crying.
But the prosecution suggested Willingham was into devil worship. As proof, these rock posters he had on his wall.
I think it's a character of proof that corroborates his sociopathy, his psychopathy. Yeah.
It didn't take long for jurors to make up their minds. With barely 2 days of testimony to consider, in little over an hour, they convicted Todd Willingham of murder. The sentence: execution. His wife Stacy had stood by him during the trial, but over time abandoned him and eventually claimed he confessed to her while in prison. Willingham had lost everything. Once again, an actor reads from letters he wrote from prison.
I was supposed to be proud at having a beautiful family and doing something with my life, but God or someone else decided I was not worthy of that and took it all away.
His stepmother, Eugenia, was among those who still stood by him, but had no idea where to turn now.
I was devastated. I just thought, oh no, you know, what's going to happen next?
Willingham spent the next 12 years on death row. Most of them here at the state penitentiary in Livingston, Texas. His family visited when they could, but they were never allowed to touch him.
He's sitting behind glass. He would put his hand up there, and but you couldn't really feel it.
Eugenia's lifeline to her stepson became the long and sometimes eloquent letters he wrote home, full of sadness and regret.
I failed in my life. I couldn't protect my family from harm, and that torments me so much. I feel I should have died also that day.
Willingham eventually got a new lawyer who believed in his innocence. He filed a flurry of appeals. But by November 2003, it was all over. His final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court had failed.
Well, are you sitting down? The time had to come sooner or later. We all knew it. Damn.
His execution was set for 3 months later, February 2004. Willingham's family scrambled to save him. His cousin, Pat Cox, pored through the court transcripts and documents looking for something that was missed.
It's like an emotional roller coaster. Deep down, you still have this nauseating fear that there is not going to be anything that you can possibly do. And yet, you do have this glimmer of hope. Hope is powerful, and you never give it up.
And hope eventually arrived from an unexpected source with shocking new evidence when we continue. By January of 2004, Todd Willingham had 1 month to live before his execution for the arson murder of his 3 young daughters. And that's when his cousin Patricia Cox finally made contact with an acclaimed scientist in Austin, Texas. He had pioneered new research into how some fires spread. His name was Dr. Gerald Hurst. Tinkering in his garage, you might not guess his chemistry degree was from prestigious Cambridge. A lifetime of research and experiments had convinced Hurst many arson probes lack scientific rigor.
It was absolutely pitiful. You had a generation of fire investigators who had been raised on folklore, fantasy. The class of investigation that occurred in the Willingham case was basically equivalent to witch hunting.
Hurst believed the original fire investigators had too quickly ruled out an accidental cause of the fire. Maybe the exposed wiring running all through the children's bedroom. He argued they misread the fire entirely.
My initial assessment was this is a bogus arson case.
He found many flaws in the case, beginning with where the fire was supposedly set. Fire investigator Doug Fogg concluded Willingham poured charcoal lighter fluid throughout the house and then lit it from the front porch. His proof? Brown stains he found on the porch.
The charcoal lighter fluid was from here. The brown stains were in this area. Something had been poured there, and that's where it burned.
Nonsense. Absolute total raving nonsense. Brown stains on concrete don't mean anything.
All right, we've got a nice thick layer. Now we will ignite that.
Hearst conducts a test on the floor of his garage to refute Fogg's theory.
Get a good flame going and drop it in.
And once the flame has burned out,
End result. The lighter fluid that's been evaporated by the fire leaves concrete that's the same color as the original concrete, but the match itself will leave a brown stain on the concrete. Brown stains on concrete mean you had some wood burning there. You had embers that fell off the ceiling and off the walls of the porch.
next problem. Where was the accelerant? They did find traces of lighter fluid underneath the porch doorway.
Finding one place in the fire area to get a positive sample that is identifiable, I thought we were very lucky in doing that.
But in the fire scene photos, Hearst found a picture of a can of lighter fluid. The family had a barbecue on the porch. That suggested a less sinister explanation for lighter fluid being there. If there had been arson, the proof would have to be inside the house.
And if you don't find any charcoal lighter fluid inside the building, you have absolutely no right to say that any was used there.
So what did they find inside the house? Well, despite taking a dozen samples, investigators failed to come up with a single trace of lighter fluid.
Well, a lot of time your evidence is lost. Sometimes it burns up, and you just don't look in the right place maybe to find it.
The bottom line is you didn't find it. If you didn't find it, you have no evidence of it. You'd have to back a truck up to get enough accelerant in there to produce a pattern that big. That's typical post-flashover.
So if an accelerant doesn't explain all that damage, what did? Hearst says the investigators failed to consider what modern-day fire scientists call flashover. It literally turned the idea of what happens in many house fires upside down. Most people imagine fire only burns up. But watch what happens in this safety video. A small flame creates a hot, dense cloud that pushes up against the ceiling. Then, like a super toaster oven, it radiates tremendous heat downwards until everything in the room explodes into flame.
Burns furiously. That thing is, it's not a fire in a room, it's a room on fire.
But to the untrained eye, the swift devastation of flashover could be misread as arson. It all led Hearst to a startling conclusion. It wasn't just that Todd Willingham was innocent of a crime, but there had been no crime.
There's no arson, right. Without the arson, you haven't got anything at all. You have to have the arson in this case in order to have a murder.
Hearst's stunning findings gave the Willingham family its first glimmer of hope in more than a decade.
Oh, I was very excited. I conveyed this to Todd. But you know, Todd didn't have much hope.
Time just slips through my hands. I try to grab it. It leaks from the cracks. Nothing can stop the marching of time.
Would Hearst's report be considered in time? Todd Willingham's execution was only days away. Todd Willingham was just 4 days away from his scheduled execution when a startling new report emerged. Scientist Gerald Hearst had concluded the fire that killed Willingham's 3 children was an accident, not arson. Willingham's lawyers frantically faxed his findings to the Texas Attorney General.
I hope that they will give us a stay of execution sufficiently long so that
we can bring in other experts to verify my findings.
Family members like Willingham's cousin, Judy Kavner, knew Hearst's report was their last chance.
My hope was that, yes, that you folks open this, you read it, you look at it, absorb, clear your mind that this could be the remote possibility. This man is innocent.
But Texas officials rejected the appeal and weren't obliged by law to give a reason. Only the governor could stop the execution now. On February 17, 2004, Eugenia Willingham went to the Livingston prison to spend her final hours with Todd.
He didn't want me to be sad. He reassured me that he was ready. He was tired of fighting.
That afternoon, Willingham was transported to where all executions take place in Texas, Huntsville Prison. The family waited desperately for a phone call from the governor's office.
I'll never forget the clock because it chimed. It chimed off the hour. And the phone rings.
And said they're going to proceed. They're going to go ahead and go through with it.
These records show that afternoon, Hearst's report was indeed passed on to the only man who could stop the execution, Texas Governor Rick Perry. But there's no indication he considered it.
You know they're going to execute an innocent man, right? This is intense awareness that nobody in the system gives a damn. People don't care.
It was 5 minutes after 5, less than an hour before the execution. Willingham got one last phone call to his family.
What is the first thing you say to a man who's going to die in 55 minutes? Do you ask him, how are you doing? You feeling okay? You try to be strong for them.
Then Eugenia took the phone to speak one last time to the boy she had raised.
He said, don't give up. Don't give up on this because you know I'm innocent.
Willingham did not go meekly. He laid down and had to be carried into the death chamber. Strapped in with leather belts and buckles, he uttered some of his last words.
The only statement I want to make is that I am an innocent man convicted of a crime I did not commit. I've been persecuted for 12 years for something I did not do.
He was injected with 3 separate lethal drugs. His heart stopped at 6:20 in the evening. Many Texans, including the police officer who found Willingham's charred children, felt justice had prevailed.
I wish that Cameron Todd Willingham could have been executed for each one of the girls 3 times, because each one of them, suffered individually. And I wish that he could have felt the suffering too that they felt.
Back in Huntsville, just minutes after the execution, the Willinghams got the customary visit from prison officials.
They have a black trash bag, and it's one of the large black trash bags, and they're holding it kind of like this, and it has a knot in it, and said, these are, all of Todd's belongings. And if you want to go and touch him, he's still warm down at the funeral home.
We touched him, we kissed him, we hugged him. He was still warm. They say they don't kill innocent men, but they sure kill one tonight.
But the controversy over Willingham's execution did not die with him. On an isolated hilltop in Oklahoma, Eugenia Willingham buried her stepson Todd in an old family plot far from his deceased children. Burying her doubt was a lot harder.
We had to make a decision to either survive or lay down and quit, or give up. And I kept thinking what he said, maybe someday I will be vindicated, clear my name.
And so the family reached out, sharing their view of what had happened. There were petitions, web pages, and widespread media attention. And then from New York City came help from a national group that fights for the wrongly convicted, called the Innocence Project. The lawyers here had used DNA testing to exonerate more than 250 people. They wondered if fire forensics could do the same thing in Todd Willingham's case. High-profile lawyer Barry Scheck led the fight.
Here was a man who had been convicted and executed based on science that had been discredited for over a decade. And there was no doubt among the major experts in this field that this analysis was totally bogus.
The Innocence Project commissioned an independent review by 5 leading scientists, and they all agreed Gerald Hurst's science was right. There was no proof of arson. One by one, they went through the more than 20 indicators of arson alleged at Willingham's trial and discounted each and every one of them. The independent scientists were unequivocal. Willingham was convicted on the basis of ignorance and invalid information.
The scientific view is unanimous. Any expert that would come in and defend the testimony and report in the Willingham case today would be a member of the Flat Earth Society for Fire Scientists.
The former Assistant Fire Chief, Doug Fogg, dismissed his critics as armchair academics.
Some of these experts that looks at a picture and reads a report and they know exactly what happened are the dumbest people I've ever heard of. I did not see any of them at that fire scene. When we were on our hands and knees digging that out, piece by piece, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. So they can take it and shove it as far as I'm concerned.
But the opinions of the scientists weren't that easy to dismiss, especially when a state body called the Texas Forensic Science Commission took them seriously. Its own independent study condemned the original fire investigators as little better than mystics or psychics. It was political dynamite. A report by an official Texas agency was calling into question the key evidence that had sent a man to his death.
I'm thinking, how can they not see? How can they not rule for Todd?
But Republican Governor Rick Perry was running for re-election in Texas. He had presided over more than 200 executions and wasn't interested in second-guessing Willingham's.
Willingham was a monster. This was a guy who murdered his 3 children.
But if there was no arson, there was no crime.
Go look at the facts and you will find that this was an incredibly bad man who murdered his kids, and the record will stand the scrutiny.
But when the Texas Science Commission started doing just that, holding public hearings into its own scathing report on the fire, Governor Perry replaced 3 of its members.
What direction you want to see the investigative panel from this point on?
And he put his own man, John Bradley, a district attorney and a close political confidant, in charge.
I saw this, as many other people did, as a deliberate attempt to derail, sabotage, and control the outcome of the investigation and the commission itself.
So the Willinghams kept showing up at the public meetings to push for an honest look at the bad science. By the fall of 2010, Bradley wanted the commission to wrap up its inquiry. He pushed for a quick approval of his draft report that essentially found nothing wrong with the original case.
We reached the tentative conclusion that these fire investigators did not engage in professional negligence or misconduct. Is there any disagreement?
The scientists pushed back.
The science, even back in 1992, was ahead of the investigative techniques.
Of course it was ahead of it, I agree with that.
No, well, but even to the point where you can articulate a standard, and that scientific standard would not have supported the conclusions that the investigator would have made, even back then.
Some of the things that were testified to are not supported by the science.
Those aren't the standards that we would have endorsed as scientists even back then. Does that make sense?
That's,
yes, right,
that's all right. We do that.
And that's absolutely not clear in the report.
Much to the delight of the Willinghams and the dismay of the governor's man, the commission voted to keep investigating the Willingham case. For the family, it was an important victory against some very, very powerful forces.
Whenever the truth does surface, it's going to create some serious repercussions. And a lot of people are going to have to face some of their worst demons. And that was executing an innocent man.
And he might not be the only one. Gerald Hurst is busy working on many more cases from across the United States he says are wrongful arson convictions.
If they admit that they made a mistake with Willingham, it would open Pandora's box. You got thousands of people who are in prison today because of accidental fires.
But one family's battle to clear a dead man's name was about to get its best chance. The Todd Willingham case was creating a political firestorm. His execution became a test case for the small but vocal number of opponents to the death penalty in Texas.
We are here today to shout it from the rooftops that Todd Willingham was innocent. Todd Willingham was innocent.
Then in October 2010, a dead man got a new trial in an Austin courthouse. The Willingham family was on hand to witness an unusual proceeding.
The court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Charlie Baird presiding. Thank you. Please be seated.
Barry Scheck from the Innocence Project and its team of lawyers had convinced a district judge named Charlie Baird to hold a special court of inquiry into the Willingham case.
Petitioners are here seeking, Your Honor, that there was official misconduct that occurred in the trial, conviction and execution of Cameron Todd Willingham, and as well an order from this court determining that he was wrongfully convicted.
Among the many exhibits they filed was an affidavit from Johnny Webb. You may remember he was the jailhouse informant who claimed Willingham had confessed to setting the fire. But Webb later wrote a letter recanting his earlier testimony, saying he lied on the stand.
John Lentini. Mr. Lentini, can you make your way?
Then it was the turn of the scientists.
People think they know about fires.
John Lentini is one of America's leading fire experts. He told the court the scientific consensus was that none of the evidence at the original trial proved arson. He used a dramatic video of a flashover fire to demonstrate how devastating an accidental fire can be.
Then, within seconds, everything in the room erupts into flame.
And do you, from everything you know about the Willingham case, do you believe that there was no scientific evidence to support arson? It was an accidental fire, or what do you...
The bottom line is that all of the evidence is consistent with an accidental fire. What I have seen that the fire marshal put forward as evidence of arson is not evidence of arson.
not arson. For the first time, a court of law heard testimony that could clear Todd Willingham's name. Then Gerald Hurst took the stand. He testified that on the eve of Willingham's execution, no one in the Texas state government bothered to ask him about his report that questioned the arson.
Did anyone from the governor's office ever call you about your report or the conclusions you reached in the Willingham case?
No.
In your expert opinion, as you sit here today, is there any basis to conclude that the Willingham fire was arson rather than an accident?
No.
It was an emotional climax for Eugenia Willingham. After almost 20 years, she felt that the truth was finally being heard.
Very well, then what I will do is I will take this matter under consideration.
Now I know.
But the moment of victory was short-lived. That same day, Texas state officials challenged the judge's authority to rule on the case. They got a higher court to block him from even making his opinion public. Barry Scheck wasn't surprised the state of Texas wanted to keep the Willingham file closed.
This would have historic significance, certainly in the modern era in the United States, to have a ruling by a court and a record, transcripts and evidence that demonstrated that somebody was convicted and executed for a crime they did not commit.
But back in Corsicana, few people are rushing to change their minds about a case that still haunts the town 2 decades later. Jimmy Hensley, the cop who led the police investigation, now patrols the city as a sergeant.
No doubt. No doubt at all. We found the right man who set the fire that killed them 3 little girls. He was tried, sentenced, and the sentence was carried out. The justice system worked.
May God continue to bless the great state of Texas.
Governor Rick Perry won a resounding re-election victory in November of 2010. Confident that the Willingham controversy could stay tied up in the courts for a very long time. In her Oklahoma home, Eugenia Willingham has only memories of her grandchildren, but she lives every day not knowing if America's justice system will ever honor the dying wish of their father.
Clear the name of me and my children, and make the truth be known.